So welcome everybody to Kagyu Samizang Edinburgh and to part 4 or 5? 5, it's part 5 of the Reign of Wisdom study and meditation sessions. And today we're going to be looking at the songs. It says the songs of Gampopa, but we're also going to be looking at the songs, 2 songs of Milarepa and 2 songs from Gampopa. But first of all, I'm going to say the prayer to the Lama and then the lineage prayer. O Paden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Dagi Chiwo Pende de Shukla Katrin Chimpo Gone Jisung Te Kusun Ching Udup Satu So O Doje Chan Chen Telo Narutang Ma Pa Mi La Che Gampopa Dusum She Cha Kun Chen Karmapa Che Shi Jung Je Jet Pa Sinam Tang Di Tak Salsum Paden Druk Pasuk Sablam Chaja Chela Nganilpe Nyame Dagpo Kajuala Salwandipso Kajula Manam Jud Pasino Nam Ta Chinjilo Shen Lo Gom Jia Kang Pa Sung Pa Shin Sen Or Kun La Chak Shen Me Pa Tang Sen Dir De Chak Che Pe Gom Chen La Nye Kor Shen Pa Me Pa Chin Ji Lo Mugu Gom Jia Go Sung Pa Shin Menga Te Gu Jepe La Mala Chandu Sawande Pe Gom Chen La Chemin Mugu Chewa Chin Jilo Yang Me Gom Jiang Shir Sun Pa Shin Kang Sha To Ping O So Ma Te Ma Che Te Ka Jo Pe Gom Chen La Ko De No Tang Chawa Chin Ji Lo Nam To Ngo Che Kur Sung Pa Shin Chiang Avayen Cheriang Charawala Mangaro Pa Charwe Gom Chen La Kode Yerme Chopa Chin Jilo Chewa Kun Chuyanda La Matang Chalme Chi Pala Long Ching Satang Lam Jian Ten Rapsoni Doje Changi Compagnon Top Show. Okay, so the reign of wisdom. So this, as I was saying, it pertains, where we're going to join them is at this point, pertaining to the crucial time in the Kagyu lineage when Milarepa recognizes Gampopa as being ready to inherit all his teachings and empowerments so that he can hold the Kagyu lineage. You know, we remember that Gampopa was a monk. He had been a physician, a doctor, and then he was ordained and had the life of a monk after his wife died. And then he met Milarepa and became his pupil, disciple, and that's really where the lineage was born, in a way, because Milarepa was the epitome of the yogic tradition. I don't hesitate to use the word tradition in that term, actually, because that sort of implies a big structure, and it wasn't like that. It was people meditating in caves, and he was the epitome of that. So a very solitary type existence, not a structured one in that way. But he was, as we've discussed previously when we've been looking at the songs of Milarepa, some of the songs, he did thousands of them, so we've looked at some of them, by no means all. He was the best example you could possibly have, and he knew that, he recognized in Gampopa that Gampopa was destined to carry all the teachings of the lineage, both the yogic side and the monastic side, and kind of be the confluence of those two different ways of approaching the Dharma and practicing the Dharma. So these sublime songs of Milarepa to Gampopa, and Gampopa to his revered and beloved master, should not only be taken at face value as being just historical documents, if you like, but rather as priceless advice to us. Of course, we're many centuries later than their time, but people are people, and whether you practiced in their time or practicing now, we can get so much from this priceless advice and instruction from them. So that's really how we should approach these songs and these teachings directly to us. Not just about certain things that happened many years ago, but the point is to apply it and to take it on board directly to us. So we're going to start with, at the point where Gampopa has already been studying with Milarepa and practicing and taking instruction from Milarepa for quite some time. So he's now become proficient and in himself an adept. So Milarepa recognizes that, and he's trying to encourage him to leave at this point, and then now you should go and you should you should get your own disciples, and that's how it's meant to be. But Gampopa is so sort of devoted to Milarepa that he's reluctant to go. And so we're picking him up at that point. So as we know, Milarepa has quite a sort of down-to-earth way of speaking, let's put it. So his opening line, bearing in mind the setting that I've just described. So this is the first song, and instead of reading all the way through it and then unpicking it, I think we'll just go verse by verse, because it's fairly direct. Of course, it will still bear a lot of study, but it's not that it's particularly esoteric or anything. It's something we should be able to understand on some level and then explore for ourselves. So I'll do it verse by verse rather than doing the whole thing. "Oh monk," he's talking to Milarepa, to Gampopa. "Oh monk, are you going to U or not?" U is the district where he's already been saying you should go. So we're catching him up. So, "Are you going to U or not?" "Monk, when you go to U, sometimes thoughts of food will arise. When thoughts of food arise, eat undefiled samadhi as food. Recognize all sweet and tasty things as illusion. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya." So basically he's saying, well, when are you going? It's been on at you for a bit now. So when you go to U, so when you get there, when you start practicing, and sometimes you'll be thinking about food. Can you relate to this? You know, you go somewhere, not much food around, probably no food around if you're in a cave, and thoughts of food will arise, for sure. We can be in a restaurant and thinking about the next day's meal. That's how obsessed we are with food. But imagine when you're sitting in a cave with nothing there, you know. So he said, but when those thoughts arise, eat the undefiled samadhi as food. Samadhi is the food of meditation, basically, of the state of meditation, that experience. When you're in that state, there's no thought of food. If you're in a state of bliss, you're fully happy, you're fully satisfied. You know? Food doesn't come close to it, you know. So that's how you'd think. Recognize all the sweet and tasty things that you can get in normal life, they're just illusory. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya. So whatever experience arises in your meditation, you experience it as Dharmakaya. That's the body of truth, the body of Buddha mind, you could say, embodied. So, like that. And then he carries on in the same vein. Sometimes thoughts of clothing will arise. When thoughts of clothing arise, wear the blissful heat of Chandali as clothes. Recognize all soft and good things as illusion. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya. So now you might think, oh, why would he have thoughts of clothes? He'll probably, where he's sending him is to a cave in the mountains in Tibet, where it's not known for its warm climate, you know, very often it's snowy. And so yes, he might think, oh, I wish I had something warm to wear. So Milarepa is saying, forget about that. What you need is to wear the blissful heat of Chandali, or tumo in his Tibetan word, for the practice of inner heat. And that will keep you warm. Are you taking notes? Okay, that's fine. Because this is being recorded, so it will be online as well, just to let you know. So that's where you should draw your heat from, not by piling on more and more clothes. I mean, not like us, you know, we one jumper is not enough, then another one, and we end up like Michelin Man or something, you know. So, but if you can practice Tumo or Chandali, then you have that inner heat, and we know that Milarepa and the other Repas that joined him were extremely proficient in that, and that's how they could exist in these very remote places with nothing but a very thin cotton cloth. That's what the word repa means, cotton cloth. And so recognize all these soft and good, so-called good things, you know, your nice cashmere stole or whatever, as illusory. They don't last. There's illusory. So experience whatever arises in that vein as also Dharmakaya, the body of truth. Sometimes thoughts of your homeland will arise. When thoughts of your homeland arise, take hold of Dharmata as your homeland. Recognize all fatherlands as illusion. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya. So, you know, when we've been somewhere for a long time, we might start to think about home and get a bit homesick and, you know, start thinking in that way, oh, I wish I was at home where it's warm and I know people, and maybe, you know, you might be feeling a bit lonely or something like that. When thoughts of your homeland arise, take hold of Dharmata as your homeland. That's your pure nature, your own pure nature. When you realize that, that's your homeland. That's home. That's your mind at home. There's no better home than that. What we call home in an earthly way is, it could be on the street somewhere, it could be in a house somewhere. We have associations with it, but all that is illusory. It's not to say it didn't happen, but it's the whim of karma and change. But when you reach the state of a pure realization of mind, that's beyond that. That's gone beyond change. That's the true nature, the changeless nature, you could say. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya, the body of Dharma, body of truth, Buddha. Sometimes thoughts of wealth will arise. When thoughts of wealth arise, take the 7 Aryan riches as your wealth. Recognize all wealth and goods as illusion. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya. So, Milarepa is saying, you may have these thoughts about wealth. You're sitting in a cave somewhere with nothing. You may think, I used to have wealth, and then maybe that would be a good thing to have, or whatever. Thoughts of wealth. So he's saying, take the 7 Aryan riches as your wealth. So Aryan is, don't think of it as Arya as in Aryan as is in the racial terms. It's not that. It means, an Arya, somebody who is an Arya is a noble one, someone worthy of respect. So like a bodhisattva or a Buddha. The 7 Aryan riches, I think that is a specific thing. I think it's just the good qualities, but let me look it up, and this is what you should do also if you come to a word that you're not entirely sure of. I think it means that the special qualities of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which is what we should be cultivating as well. Aryan riches, the 7 riches of a Bodhisattva, which are faith, discipline, generosity, learning, decorum or good conduct, modesty or humility, you could say, and knowledge. So those are how it's specified. So that's what the true wealth is. That wealth can never change or be taken from you. Ordinary worldly wealth is subject to change or being stolen or definitely impermanent. But if you have the wealth of the 7 Aryan wealth, then nobody can take that. Sometimes thoughts of companionship will arise. When thoughts of companionship arise, rely on self-existing wisdom as your companion. Recognize all friends and companions as illusion. Experience whatever arises as Dharmakaya. So he's predicting that he might sometimes feel lonely, and he'll think of his friends or, companions that he's met along the way. But he's saying rely on self-existing wisdom as your companion. The wisdom that comes from within. And that all friends and companions are illusory. When it says illusory, it doesn't mean to say they don't exist, but they're transient. And in a way, they're also illusory, because how many times do you have a friend who becomes someone that you end up not liking? Or you meet someone that you don't like for whatever reason, and then they end up becoming friends with you. So that shows there's no actual truth in it, or is it all changeable, depending on your outlook. Everything depends on our outlook, on our state of mind. That's where we should put our attention, because that changes everything. How we see the world, how we see ourselves, how everything is. That's the one thing when we reach full understanding that does not change. because we've seen it. The light's gone on. So he recognizes the fact he's human, he's going to be thinking these things, these thoughts will occur, and that's normal, it's natural. So he's showing him how to deal with them, to recognize them for what they are. And it's not easy, because it's habits of many, many lifetimes that we've built up. And don't forget, he's talking to someone who's already a realized person. But even so, we'll be subject to some of these thoughts some of the time. Sometimes thoughts of the guru will arise. So he is his guru, he's his main guru. I mean, he did have other gurus, but Milarepa is his main guru, his root guru. So sometimes thoughts of the guru will arise. When thoughts of the guru arise, supplicate him as inseparable from the top of your head. Never forgetting, meditate on him in the center of your heart. Even the guru is like an illusory dream. In general, recognize everything as illusion. So you might think, well, why is the guru an illusion? It's the guru that's telling him about this. So how does that work? So what's he saying here is he's saying, when thoughts of the guru arise, that means that Gampopa's still thinking of the guru as somebody outside of himself, to whom he is supplicating, and that's fine. You can supplicate him, but supplicate him as inseparable from you. Because you have realized that point now where you've merged with the guru. So don't fall into the habit of thinking the guru is other. If two people have both reached full realization, there's no difference between them. I mean, there might be a body, but their minds are completely merged in the truth of how things are. So don't go back to that habit of seeing your guru as something other. The guru is, think of him, supplicate him, make sure that you pay that respect and reverence for the guru, because those are good qualities. And that's how you receive the blessings, but ultimately you're inseparable. So supplicate him as inseparable from the top of your head, and never forgetting, meditate on him in the center of your heart. You might think, well, if he's there, how can he be there? But it's the mind we're talking about. Then it's not a body stuck there or stuck here. And usually the instruction also is that, for example, in the daytime when you're going about your things, or you're doing your practice, you meditate with the guru on the top, or someone that you look up to on the top of your head. But they're not physically there, but that's paying respect, holding them high. And then it's also instructed when we go to bed at night, lying down in bed, then imagine the guru coming down and coming to rest in your heart, all cuddled up for the night. So it's very much a cozy sort of feeling, so that you're kind of inseparable. So even the guru is like an illusory dream. That thought of the guru as being separate. Because once you realize the true nature, then there's maybe a different body, that's all. In general, recognize everything as illusion. So that's his advice to him, and then he finishes by saying, so where you're going, the mountain Gampopa is to the east. It is like a king sitting on his throne. So the shape of the mountain is like a king sitting on the throne. The mountain behind is like a hanging of white silk. The mountain in front is like a heap of jewels. The peak is like a precious crown. The 7 mountains around are bowing like ministers. He's describing the geography of the place in these terms. The woods and meadows are like a golden mandala. on the shoulders of this mountain will be your disciples. This is where you'll find your disciples. You should go there and benefit beings. Go, son, and accomplish the benefit of beings. So in that verse, he's just giving this very beautiful poetic description of the geography, of the landscape of the place where he's going, and how he sees the rocks and the outlines of the mountains in those terms. You know, like a mandala of rock and flowers and meadows and streams. And so that's how he sees it, you know. And he's just giving him that mind picture of where he should go, and that's where he's going to find his disciples. So go and help them, help accomplish the benefit of beings. Thus Mila sang. So he's encouraging him to go. And then there's another bit of narrative which I'm going to read this as well, because it's sort of Mila still singing to Gampopa, but it's not a song in this one. It's just talking to him. It's called Gampopa's Farewell. This section. So Mila says to him, "Your name is world-renowned Vajra holder." That's how it translates. Mila said. Then he gave Gampopa further abhishekas, that's empowerments, blessings and instructions, and having completely given him all the teachings, Mila gave him golden myrobalan and spit on it. I think it should be spat on it, past tense. And he gave him a fire-striking kit as well. Myrobalan is some kind of, I think it's a kind of resin. It's a plant-based thing, and it's supposed to be precious. So he gave him that. And then the Guru said, now go to that land and meditate. In general, like a wounded deer or a bird, be very careful. You should be peaceful and tame and less irritable, which sort of suggests he's been a bit irritable. I think by irritable he means less kind of prone to irritation by small things, so forget that. You should have great patience and act in accord with everything. You should be very pure. So act in harmony with everything. You should be very pure and orderly. You should have few conceptual thoughts. Pass your time in mountain retreats. Take a vow of silence and wall yourself in. You know, if he's in a cave, you can wall yourself in. That's what Milarepa did. Even though you realize your own mind as Buddha, you should not abandon your guru, the Vajra master. So you may have reached full realization, but you never abandon the guru, the Vajra master. Even though both accumulation and purification are achieved naturally, you should still practice the smallest accumulation. So here he's saying, you know, you've already achieved much. You know, you've achieved realization. You've already accumulated great merit, great virtue. You've already achieved full purification. But even though you've achieved all of that, don't neglect to still, if there's something comes along that requires you to purify some little aspect of your mind, very tiny, little minor thing, you should still do it. Or even though you've accumulated great virtue, great merit, still, you can never have too much of that. You know, don't think, oh, that's me, I'm done. No, you know. And even though your understanding of karma and its result is as vast as the sky, I mean, that would be enough for most people, yeah? As vast as the sky. You should, because if you might think, the minute you think you've got it, that can be your downfall. Because then there's a little bit of pride creeping in, and that can blind you again. So even though your understanding of karma is as vast as the sky, you should shun the smallest evil, the smallest little nitty-bitty evil's a big word, a strong word, but even a small negativity. Don't go there. Even though your experience is free from meditation and post-meditation, in other words, he's gone beyond that because it's all meditation. He's always in experiencing the meditative state. So it's not like, oh, now I'm meditating. Oh, no, I'm not meditating. This is post-meditation. This is meditation. That's pre-meditation. None of that. It's all fully realized. But nevertheless, you should unceasingly practice the yoga of the 4 periods of the day. So still keep to your 4 sessions of the day. I remember once when I was with Gyalwang Rinpoche and I was going on doing a short retreat. I was going to go on a short retreat to Holy Island, and I said, oh, it's a shame, Rinpoche, because you're always working. It'd be nice for you to go on a retreat. And then I retracted it, and I said, oh, but you don't need to go on a retreat, meaning that he's already there, And he said, oh, I do. So, yeah. So even though you realize equanimity towards self and others, do not disparage other teachings or people. So you might realize equanimity and have the feeling of, equality of self and others, but therefore be careful. Don't disparage others' teachings, even if you think they're rubbish. He doesn't say that, but you shouldn't disparage others' teachings or people. Son, on the 14th day of the horse month in the year of the hare, you should arrive at the border of Trin and Nyenam. Then Milarepa sang a farewell song to the man from Dagpo. Son, when simplicity arises in your mind, do not follow sophistries. There is the danger of being caught in the trap of the 8 worldly dharmas. Son, rest in the state free of arrogance. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? In this one verse, he's calling him son, because he's so close to him, but he's also calling him a monk, and he's also calling him a physician. So he's sort of giving all his different identities, but basically he's son. When simplicity arises in your mind, simplicity, which these days is not valued very much, but which Milarepa is the very epitome of simplicity. He had nothing. He lived the most simple life you could. He'd done away with all the stuff that we concern ourselves with. Do not follow sophistries, that's kind of philosophical concepts and all that stuff. You don't need all that stuff. You've gone beyond that stuff. Simplicity trumps it every time. I don't like to use that word because of the other identification. But yeah, you know what I mean, in the card sense of the... So there is danger of being caught in the trap of the 8 worldly dharmas, and we've come across those many times before, so I'm not going to go through them, but remember the pairs of praise and blame and all of those things. So don't get caught up in the 8 worldly dharmas. You might think you've gone beyond, but if you start to philosophize the things, you'll get caught up in that whole bundle of confusion, basically. Son, rest in the state free of arrogance. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? And he continues in this similar vein. Son, when self-liberation arises within, do not set up logical connections. So you become self-realized. Don't then fall into the trap of making these little connections. Oh, that must be this, or that must be that, and making it logical, making it conceptual. It's beyond all that. I often think of, when people are very academically inclined, they're very caught up in this world of philosophizing and logic and in a trying to analyze something that is beyond analysis, that is experiential. And so they miss it. And then they fall down because very often they get prideful because, they get another degree or they get a professorship or they get this or that. That's not saying all academics are bad, but it's very easy to get caught up in it. And it's not just academics, but that way of being, of thinking and of, sort of awarding degrees and stuff is very harmful in some ways because it's easy to get trapped. So he's warning them against this kind of thing. And he says there is the danger of useless exertion. So you may not be in an academic institution, but even on your own, if you start thinking like that, it's like you've already got this realization, and now you're kind of letting it fall into something lesser by trying to analyze it in that way. Just be it, just feel it, understand it, without trying to make these sort of connections. And then, because if you do, there's the danger of useless exertion. You're just going to tire yourself out, getting all confused about things again. Son, rest in the state free of discursive thought. You've gone beyond discursive thought. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? Big shot. No, because he's had all that training. He's had his physician training, he's had his monk's training, he's very, very well respected, He's also had the yogic training, but he's giving them really, remember, just because you realize, don't think it's like, you can slip back through habit. When you realize the emptiness of your mind, do not be attached to the one or the many. There is the danger of falling into nihilistic emptiness. Son, rest in the state of simplicity. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? You've realized the state of emptiness. Rest in that. Don't be attached to, is it one or is it many? There's a danger of falling into nihilistic emptiness, which is not what is meant by emptiness. It's not some nothing that there is nothing. That's the wrong view. Rest in the state of simplicity. Don't overcomplicate it with endless conceptual thinking. When you are practicing Mahamudra, do not busy yourself in body and speech with your daily ritual. There is the danger that the wisdom of non-thought might vanish. Son, rest in the unfabricated innate state. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? So Mahamudra is the highest teaching, the highest state. When you're practicing Mahamudra, don't busy yourself in body and speech with your daily ritual. You don't have to do this, that, and the other all the time. Just rest in Mahamudra. You're already at the top. What are you mucking about for? It's like you've gone beyond that. Through habit, don't feel that you've got to do all of this stuff to must do this, must do that. Gone beyond. Rest in simplicity. Keep it simple. There is the danger that the wisdom of non-thought might vanish because you get caught up in thoughts again. Rest in the unfabricated innate state. That's enough. There's nothing more. Do you understand this? When signs and prophecies arise, do not fixate out of joy or pride. There is the danger that the prophecies of Mara will arise. Son, rest in the state free from fixation. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? So when you're meditating, these signs and prophecies might arise, and that's fine. You shouldn't deny them, but don't fixate on them. Because why? Because that's how you get attached. And that's the downfall, the attachment. Not that there's something wrong with the prophecy or wrong with the sign. You should see them, accept them, but don't fixate, because that will then lead you to attachment. And then once you've got that, then there's the danger that the prophecies of Mara, which is the temptations, you'll just fall back into that. There's that danger. You'll be in the grip of Mara, various temptations. So rest in the state free from fixation. You're not saying you don't experience it or you have to deny it. No, experience it, but don't fixate. When you are resolving your mind, do not hanker for the higher perceptions. There is the danger of being carried away by the maras of joy and pride. Son, rest in the state free from hope. Do you understand this, monk from U? Do you understand this, physician from Dagpo? So when you're resolving your mind, when you're sitting in meditation, you don't need to be hankering after some sort of higher perception, because then there's the danger of being carried away by the temptations of joy and pride. Rest where you are. Don't be chasing more and more and more. Rest, that's where you will be, and that's where everything is. So don't think, oh, if I can go higher and better or bigger or whatever, having that, again, sort of a grasping. So rest in the state free from hope. And we find that might be a bit odd, because we're always saying, oh, you've got to have hope. But the problem with hope is that it's not in our hands. It's something you're hoping for. That is a fixation, that's attachment, that's wanting something to be other than it is. And its opposite is fear. So it is said that when you fully realize, you've gone beyond hope and fear. Hope is what you want to happen, fear is what you don't want to happen. And that's how we spend, as worldly beings, our lives, running away from one and running to the other. And that's our downfall, actually. I don't think it should be like hopeless in this case, a sense of despairing, but I think it's good to think of aspiration rather than hope, because aspiration, this is just me, by the way, now, not Milarepa, so you can take it with a pinch of salt, but I feel that aspiration is positive, but it is more proactive. You have to do something. You have to do something in order to have some results, rather than just sort of sitting back hoping that something will fall into your lap kind of thing. I don't know, it just seems like it's a bit more active. Anyway, the point is that he's saying, don't hanker always for something more and something better and something bigger and higher perception. Rest in simplicity, in a state free from hope. So that was the sort of parting instruction from one great master to another great master. But the pupil, in this case Gampopa, although he's compared to us, he's way up there, but he's still receiving this kind of advice from Milarepa, warning him of if you're on your own in this cave and you fully, almost come, realization and enlightenment doesn't go from nothing to everything. It is in stages, so I don't know, I would never be able to tell you what stage Gampopa was at. It was very, very high, but maybe still a little bit more to go, And so that's the amazing advice that he gave him, and us. And even though we're not at that state, we want to go in that direction. And it's really instructive, because, it'll help us not to get prideful if we get some little glimpse of something and then, I'm getting quite good at this meditation bit, or something, and the next time it's... So anyway, so that was something of the main lasting instruction from Milarepa to Gampopa. And now, there's a little bit of narrative that I'm going to read. So, thus Milarepa sang. And then he saw Gampopa off. He saw him go. So after the Jetson had seen Gampopa off, he returned to his cave where he was and there were some disciples close by, so he gathered all his disciples around him and he said, "This physician monk," meaning Gampopa, "this physician monk will be of benefit to many sentient beings. Last night I dreamt that a vulture flew from next to me to the land of U, which is where he's told Gampopa to go. So it went to U and it landed on top of a great mountain. From all directions, many flocks of geese gathered for a while and then dispersed. Each goose was accompanied by 500 attendant geese, and the whole valley was filled with these yellow golden geese. I am a yogin, but many of my followers will be monks. This physician monk will benefit innumerable sentient beings. Thus, I have fulfilled the teaching and the prophecy of the Buddha." Job done. Okay, so before I said job done, I meant in respect of bidding Gampopa farewell and having transmitted all the teachings to him. But of course, Milarepa had lots of other jobs to do and many other people to benefit, which of course he did. But it's fair to say that Gampopa was a very key figure in terms of the whole lineage that we, continues today. So he was a very, very key figure. Anyway, so now we're going to switch the focus more on Gampopa. So Gampopa went to U, and he arrived at the place of Geshe Nyugrumpa, who said, "Yogin, what kind of virtues have you attained?" Gampopa replied, "My prana does not escape from within, and my realization is as vast as space." So, not much, really. Later, well, he's just telling it like it is, Later, when Gampopa was staying at Nyal, he remembered what the Guru had told him. He borrowed 12 drams of gold from Gyapasere and took along Regomrepa as a companion. When Gampopa arrived at the confluence of the Yarlung, must be a river, he met a donkey trader from Sang, who told him that the Jetson had died on the 14th day of the horse month. So he met this donkey trader who told him that Milarepa had died. And he told him the day of the month. But the trader had brought him the Jetson Milarepa's staff and his cotton robe as clothing as relics for worship, and he presented them to Gampopa. So obviously he'd been given these precious relics to give to Gampopa. Gampopa shed many tears and fainted. The people near him massaged his hands and feet and sprinkled water on his face. In a little while he regained his senses and scattered an ounce of the gold in the direction of Trin, which is where the Milarepa had died, and he offered this song of supplication to his guru. So of course, they know that it's the body that's died. The mind does not die. The guru is still with you. But nevertheless, as a human being, of course, he's devastated. I mean, he's grieving. But he's supplicating to Milarepa, Lord. So it's in the present tense, because the mind doesn't die. So he can still talk to Milarepa, still communicate with Milarepa. Lord, when you go to the summit of the white snow mountain, your actions are like those of a white snow lioness. You are the yogin who overpowers the outlooks of others. Everything that he's saying in this is praise and supplication and praises to his guru. I think it's fairly evident what that means, yeah? Do I need to try and unpack? I think it doesn't really need unpacking. It's like, your actions are like those of a white snow lioness. You're magnificent. You're in your home. You are the yogin who overpowers the outlooks of others. You're king of that, Lord, when you go to the forest, your actions are like those of a striped tiger. You are the yogin free from hope and fear. It's conquered hope and fear. Lord, when you go to the white rock summit, your actions are like those of a white vulture. You are the yogin who has conquered space. So whatever environment you're in, you are the conqueror of that environment. The vulture is the king of space. The tiger is the king of the forest. The snow lioness is the king of the mountains. So he's saying that wherever you go, you are at home. You have no fear of any of this. Lord, when you wander carefree in mountain solitudes, your actions are like those of a wild animal. You are the yogin who cuts off from attachment. You do what needs to be done. No more, no less. You do what needs to be done, like a wild animal. You don't grab more. You don't have that attachment like humans have. Lord, when you stay amidst your retinue of disciples, your actions are like those of Vajradhara, the primordial Buddha. You are the yogin who guides us fortunate ones. You're the primordial Buddha. Lord, whose actions are like an elephant's, you are truly beyond meditation and post-meditation. You've gone beyond gati, paragati. Lord, whose actions are like a child's, you are truly without inhibitions. You don't, should I do this, should I do that? You act in that way, pure and simple, like a child. Lords whose actions are beyond concept, you have truly comprehended that. That is indescribable, so I'm not going to attempt it. Your actions are beyond concept. You have truly comprehended that. Lord, since you possess the higher perceptions, your inner mind is truly luminous, enlightened. Lord, whose consideration for food and drink is small, you truly eat samadhi as food, the meditative state, the state beyond. Lord, like the mighty king of jewels, whatever one needs comes from you. You're like the wish-fulfilling gem. Lord, like the full moon amongst a myriad of stars, you are the most beautiful among many. Even surrounded by stars, but you're like the moon, Lord, like the lotus above the mud, you are not stained with the faults of samsara. You've grown through the mud and you've emerged stainless. None of the faults cling to you. You are very kind to all beings. You have accomplished the wishes of the Kagyu. Your good qualities are immeasurable, and my praise is trifling. I cannot praise you enough. There's no praise enough for you. Think of me with kindness and accept me, even though I have no material gifts of veneration to give. I will practice until we become one in Dharma, in the Dharmakaya. I will practice until we are truly one in that. Do not end your river of blessings. Do not release me from the iron hook of your kindness. I will continue to practice. I will continue to meditate. I will continue to do all my practice until we become truly one in the Dharmakaya, body of Buddha. Buddha body, if you like, Buddha mind. Do not end your river of blessings. Please continue to bless me. Do not release me from the iron hook of your kindness. By the merit of these praises, may I meet with the Jetson himself, and when we meet, please grant your blessings. So that shows you that he understands that death is of no consequence. Of course, as a human being, he has the habit to be sad when his teacher dies or when somebody dies. But he also knows that the Jetson's mind is still there, still contactable. And when they meet fully, please grant your blessings. So that's his initial response to hearing about the death of his precious teacher. And there's a lot to be learnt from the way he's responded in that way, you know. So yes, initially he fainted and, you know, he was tearful, but then when he really supplicated Milarepa, this is what emerged, you know, and he saw it for how it is. And he's still asking for his blessings, you know, so that he may continue to be fully merged. So thus he sang. And then Gampopa said, one night I dreamt that I had a son, and that I cut off his head, saying, I have cut my family line. I then dreamt that I rolled the corpse down the hill. Since this dream, I have had no more dreams, and my sleep has been transformed into luminosity. So that was a pretty strange dream, yeah? I mean, it sounds really gory. I mean, he cut his son's head off. But he realized that it was portending that he'd cut his family line, you know, that attachment. He didn't have a son, actually. He had a wife and son, but they died many years before, so he didn't have an existing son. But in the dream, that's what it was. He cut his family line, and then he rolled the corpse down the hill. So in other words, he completely detached, had no attachment for the sort of worldly life, basically, you could say. Epitomized by that. It's to be taken as symbolic of that, you know. Anyway, the point of it is that since he'd had that dream, he'd not had any more dreams. And his sleep, the time when he was asleep, instead of having these dreams to resolve this and that, or whatever dreams are for, of course they're illusory, as is the non-dream state. So of course dreams are more understandably illusory. But since that very dramatic dream, his sleep had been transformed totally into luminosity. So even during sleep, he was in a state of luminous bliss and enlightenment. So then there was no difference between sleep and not sleep. Of course, for his body, I guess he must have needed some amount of sleep, but his mind was always in that state. And then he sang this song. So he's singing to his disciples around him, but I really think we should imagine we were there with him and them, and we're one of the disciples, and take it directly like that, not just as a story about what happened many years ago. So then Gampopa sang this song. I sing a song from the Dharma Dhatu of great bliss, that space of great bliss. This is where I'm coming from. I speak these words in the state of wisdom, thus resolving the truth of non-duality. So I'm speaking these words from a state of wisdom, not from a state of ignorance or semi-ignorance or semi-wisdom, from a state of luminosity, great bliss and wisdom, the highest state you can imagine. Thus, resolving the truth of non-duality. Self and other, black and white, good and bad. That's duality. So non-duality, I've gone beyond duality to the state of resolving it. The truth of non-duality. This compassion that I have is free from attachment, and that benefits others. It's not that I have only compassion for this one but not for that one. It's free from attachment, and that benefits others. Seize it firmly as supreme upaya. He's advising us, the disciples, to seize that attitude of totally impartial compassion as supreme upaya. And what is upaya? It means skillful means. This is a very, very skillful means of having complete impartial compassion, not just for those we like or we don't like. And that's the skillful means. So one's compassion, our compassion, should go beyond likes and dislikes. This co-emergent consciousness sees firmly as wisdom. When certainty arises, that is it. So this co-emergent consciousness is samsara and nirvana simultaneously, sees it as wisdom. We still think, oh, nirvana's really good, but I'm not sure this samsara is terrible. I have to get out of that in order to get to the other one. It's not that. The one becomes the other, the one is the other. They're co-emergent because they arise at the same time. And to realize nirvana, it's through samsara that you realize nirvana. They're not separate. So we have some vague sort of intellectual thinking that maybe we understand that a little bit. There's some possible inkling that we have a tiny bit of that. I can sort of see how that might be. But we haven't experienced it. That's where we need to put our efforts. And when a certainty arises, it's not, oh, I think maybe. When it's certain, that is it. That's what we need to understand and experience. These discursive thoughts of fixation seized firmly as dharmakaya when one experiences this, the essence is seen. So even these discursive thoughts of fixation sees them as the Dharmakaya. When one experiences this, the essence is seen. That's hard for us to get, isn't it? So it's tricky. Because we shouldn't have these discursive thoughts because they just go on and on and on and on. But when you see them in a different light, like change the viewpoint, so instead of getting like caught up in all these fixations and attached to this and attached to that, but if you can like maybe take a step back and have a different perspective on it, then that can lead you to see it as Dharmakaya. And when one experiences this, the essence is seen. Why? Because the discursive thoughts are samsara. And we've just said that samsara and nirvana are inseparable. So in that way, discursive thoughts also lead to the understanding of Dharmakaya. Because we're not caught up in it in that same way of not understanding it. It's hard because we're not there yet, so we're just trying to delve into it. And what I'm saying is just so in this next half hour or whatever, this is for you to work on. We're just zipping through this, very quickly. But you need to go into it and really meditate on it, not just read the words, but meditate on it to get the meaning. So when one experiences the essence of seeing, sights and sounds and habitual patterns of labeling sees firmly as the ultimate truth. When certainty arises, that is it. So all these things that we habitually pattern, we like this, we don't like that, this is good, that's bad, we label it, we put it into boxes, little categories, all of this. And then we think, oh, no, that's not good. But then, if you seize it as the ultimate truth because you've seen it for what it is, rather than being its victim, rather than being at the mercy of it, of sort of wrong thinking, but seeing for what it is, then it becomes opposite. It becomes the truth because you've seen it for what it is. You're not hoodwinked by it. I think it's something like that. I don't know for sure, but I think it's something like, when you've seen through something and you see it for what it is, then, that's what it is. Because you're no longer a victim of it. You've mastered it, basically. I think. Okay, he goes on. These discursive thoughts are the birth of fixation. So when you see that these discursive thoughts are the birth of fixation, when one has mastered this, so yeah, there's a question of mastery, the truth is seen. You're not at its mercy anymore. You've mastered it. You get it. And principle, is that a little bit? If one desires to realize the truth of this, practice continuously, like a river. So if you really want to know the truth of what I'm saying, it's not enough just to hear me saying it. Practice continuously. There's no other way. Otherwise, it'll just go, vroom. Oh, I thought I understood that. Oh, maybe not. Definitely not. Because what's he saying? If one desires to realize the truth, is practice continuously like a river. Rest loosely, without further fabrications, making stuff up, contriving. Rest naturally, without seeking further. Rest easily, without thinking. have to contrive it, it's this, it's that, getting all wound up in it. Rest easy, but continuously. Naturally. Experience and realization are one. You need to experience it, not think it. What we're doing is we're thinking about something rather than realizing it. Of course, you need to think about it at first. You need to study. That's what study is, isn't it? You're taking information on board, you're mulling it over, then you reflect on it. But then you need to meditate, because that's the experience. That's that's when you properly take it on board. That's when you really realize it, not just a slight bit of intellectual understanding that comes and goes, but something you actually take on board. You eat it up. Yeah? It becomes part of you. So experience and realization are one. And when realization is uninterrupted, that is it. So not something that comes and goes and a little bit down, the odd bit of glimpse tomorrow or whatever. It's uninterrupted. You've seen it. The lights are on. And when it is as limitless as space, that is it. There is no boundary. There's no, that's realization, that isn't. It's limitless. When one sees one's mind as Buddha, that is it. But not in a deluded way. Oh, I'm Buddha. I've been sitting for a good hour and I'm Buddha now. No, of course not. When all these other things that you said then, when one sees one mind as Buddha, that is it. There's no difference between you and Buddha anymore. Now, I may have realized the true Dharmata. Fixation may have been self-liberated. Without thinking, I may have spontaneously achieved realization. It's interesting the way this is written. I may have done this. I may have realized the true Dharmata, the pure nature. My pure nature, the pure nature. Fixation may have been self-liberated. Self-liberated. Because the fixation, when it's not there, it liberates itself. Not something from outside is going to come and liberate it. Everything liberates itself when it's understood. Seen for how it truly is, as opposed to how you thought it was before. And without thinking, I may have spontaneously achieved realization. This is not ordinary. And it is not for the ordinary. This cannot be understood by great learning. That meaning academic, intellectual, categorizing great learning. This cannot be understood by great learning. This cannot be understood by great knowledge, absorbing more and more information, which is what knowledge basically is. This cannot be known by great knowledge. This is not for the labeling of discursive thought. What I'm talking about is not ordinary in that way. It's beyond that. He's talking about his own experience. I remain on the path of blessings. I'm on the path where I receive the blessings of the gurus. I attend to the words of the guru. I follow the words of the guru, my guru, the guru. It is the faithful who achieve realization. Not necessarily those who've got loads of learning and discursive knowledge and all of this. It is the faithful who achieve realization. Is your realization like this, all you great meditators? This should not be told to everyone. So he's he's popping their pride somewhat, It's the faithful, those people you might look down on, possibly, with your great learning and your great meditating and all of this. It is the faithful who achieve realization. Is your realization like this, all you great meditators? He says with a note of sarcasm, I suspect. But with a good motivation, he's pointing that out to them. This is what the Guru does, points out the faults. And he's also saying this should not be told to everyone because not everyone will get it. So I think at that point, that obviously this song especially is such great instruction. Every word of every line bears thought and meditation, and that's the practice. Of course, all the songs do, but this is particularly direct, so we should take this as a very, very precious teaching and use it, because if we just read through it like that, it's just going to go, gone. So for it to be useful, used in the way that he's talking about, we have to use it. We have to reflect on it and meditate on it. So let's have a short meditation anyway. I can have a little bit of time to straighten up your posture. If you're sitting on a chair, put your feet flat on the ground, bring your bottom forward so you're not leaning on the back of the chair. You should be supporting your own back, not leaning. Keep your eyes open, you're not falling asleep. So keep your eyes open, but just resting. You can, gently looking downwards. If you totally close them, the chances are you'll get drowsy and the mind will get dull. So always keep your eyes a little bit open and then forget about them because you're not going to be using them. You're going to be looking inwardly. So the mind, the focus is inward at your own mind. And I don't need to give a guided meditation, my little guidance, because I just had the most precious guidance from Gampopa. So with his words echoing through our minds, we can just relax, rest easy, rest loosely, without further fabrications, rest naturally, without seeking further, rest easily, without thinking. Okay, so I know that was quite a brief, short meditation, but better to meditate short and fully focused than distracted. Of course, when you're meditating at home, you do it longer, as long as you can comfortably do it. I often think that without meditation, the rest, this learning and going through stuff doesn't really do us that much good. Of course, it's important. We have to understand something first. We have to know something. We have to absorb some information, hear about something. That's what study is, isn't it? And then we need to reflect on it. And is it true? And how is it true? And how does it work? And we mull it over like that. But then the meditation part is where it's like we eat it. We take it on board. We understand it. We experience it. So without the meditation, if we only just have a sort of slight mental, intellectual understanding, and we've thought it through a bit, but we've not taken it on board, not experienced it, it's like we haven't eaten. And if we don't eat, then we die hungry. That's kind of how I think of it. So it is so important to meditate on it. And we can't do that here all the time. Of course, we could do little ones like this, but you need to practice like a river, and not just when you're sitting down on a cushion, but when you can be in a state of meditation just walking, Of course, it's harder for us because we're not great meditators, so we do, but we can be in something of a meditative state if we're not busy with other things and lots of discursive thoughts. It's easier for us to sit in a place, but I'm not just saying that it's possible to meditate if you're on your own walking along or doing something like that. Anyway, and then finally, after singing that amazing, very, very precious song of instruction, Gampopa said, "Generally, I had great difficulty in giving rise to meditation experiences in my being." So it wasn't easy for him either, Now, it seems that all of you give rise to them without difficulty. Again, I'm not entirely sure whether he's just sort of, being a little bit critical of them. In addition to this profound path of the upaya of the oral instructions, the transmission of blessings is the speciality of the Kagyus, and it is unequaled. That's really interesting, because he's saying that, upaya is, as we said before, means skillful means, and prajna is wisdom. So we need both wisdom and skillful means. This is what, the bell and the dorji symbolizes, the feminine wisdom, the masculine skillful means. That doesn't mean to say it's one sex does this and the other sex does that, but it's seen as the two things that that unite and which, when are in harmony, that's it. So you need both. You need the wisdom and you need the skillful means. Just wisdom doesn't go anywhere. Just skillful means needs to be directed by wisdom, so you need both in harmony. In addition, the transmission of blessings of the Guru, blessings of the Buddha, is the speciality of the Kagyus. That's where the faith comes in. Devotion and faith. That's the speciality of the Kagyus, and it is unequaled. So, You know, if you think, oh, I've studied a lot and I've done this and I've done that and I've understood this, where's your faith? Have you got any faith? Have you got devotion? Because that's how the blessings are received, through that. Otherwise you're not open to the blessings. The blessings are always there. But if you're not open to them, if you have no faith, if you have no devotion, then you don't receive them. And yet he's saying, this is the speciality of the Kagyu. That's how it's through the blessings. That's essential. And it's unequaled in the Kagyu lineage, so how precious. So don't just get caught up in the intellectual side of things, you know. You need to cultivate that faith and openness. Anyway, I think that's a very interesting point that he ends up on that, the faith of the Kagyus, and it's the final narrative of Gampopa extolling the blessings of the Kagyus. So the main point, as I see it, is to take it on board, study, reflect, and meditate on every word, and apply it in our own lives and practice. That's what it's for. That's the whole point of it. Otherwise, we just could read a novel, you know, and be nice, you know. Anyway, that's all I've got to say on the subject. And I'm talking to myself here as well, definitely. Otherwise, it'd be the popcorn and the kettle black. So I'm reminding myself. So finally, let's just dedicate the merit of our practice and share the merit with all sentient beings, impartially. Sanam de tamche sikpani tobne nipe dranam pamche ne Jigana chibala drupaye sipe sole doa doarsho. Okay. So thanks for coming, and I hope it's been of some use and continues to be of use. So the songs are all online. If you don't have the book, it's good to have the book, but if you don't have the book, then the songs that we've been reading today and mulling over today will be online, so you can practice in that way. Make technology your friend, not your dictator, but your friend, your helpful friend.